And as we mentioned, the House Ways and Means Committee released emails showing the former chief of the tax-exempt unit asking why Crossroads had not been ruled or had not been audited. Around the same time, an email suggested that Lerner might be applying for a job with the pro-President Barack Obama group Organizing for Action. The documents were released after a rare closed-door Ways and Means Committee meeting, which we had Kevin Brady on here, a member of that committee, talking to us right after that letter was finalized, where the panel voted to send that letter over to Attorney General Eric Holder, requesting that he take the former head of the IRS tax-exempt division to court. Lerner has publicly acknowledged that she gave extra scrutiny to Tea Party groups, and an Inspector General's report was critical of the IRS for the same behavior, although the president has famously said there was not even a smidgen of corruption.
Joining us now to talk about this issue from Washington, D.C., another member of the Ways and Means Committee, also the chief deputy whip inside the Republican organization, or the Republican conference. That's the correct nomenclature. Conferencing with us now, if you would allow me to indulge and use that phrase, the gentleman from Illinois, Congressman Peter Roskam. Pete, welcome back to America's Forum.
Thank you, guys. Great to be with you.
Now, Pete, you've got an interesting perspective on this because you and Barack Obama served together in the state Senate. Now, years later, here you are, a member of the Ways and Means Committee, and there's your old state Senate colleague at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Give us a step back. What set up the situation that you folks dealt with yesterday in committee?
Here's what's going on. So a couple of years ago, President Obama comes and does a State of the Union speech where he publicly admonishes the United States Supreme Court and really calls them out on one of their decisions on free speech, the decision on Citizens United that had to do with campaign finance reform. He's then telegraphing to his lieutenants, and his lieutenants are picking up the signal. And the signal is, let's focus in on these different groups that are now emerging, particularly those conservative groups that can have an impact on the public debate. So you had David Axelrod calling out some of the conservative groups. You had Senator Durbin, who is very close to the president, writing to the IRS saying, we need you to look at these groups. Are they following the law, and so forth. And so lo and behold, Lois Lerner begins acting on this. We don't know any more contact from whom to whom, but we do know what Lois Lerner did, and this is based on, and this is important, it's based on the independent investigation of the Ways and Means Committee. So in other words, the Ways and Means Committee learns information through interviews of IRS officials and employees, through some of the email traffic that we've received from the IRS of Lois Lerner, and we've come to the conclusions that she committed crimes in our view, or certainly this is worth reviewing on three things. Number one, that she denied the constitutional rights of organizations and individuals who were seeking to get a certain tax status to which they were entitled. Number two, that she obstructed the investigation or misled the investigators that were subsequent to that. And number three, that she divulged confidential information that was in her possession as a trustee of that information, who had no authority to divulge that information, and
so
those
Peter,
are felonies.
And yesterday, the committee votes to send the Attorney General a letter requesting a review and prosecution. Now, in the real world, at least based on past performance, Eric Holder has always basically stonewalled anything that would be politically embarrassing to the president or to the administration. What's going to make it different now?
Well, so it's hard to change the disposition or the attitude of Eric Holder, but what we in the House want to do is make sure that we're not complicit in it. In other words, we have information that we believe should lead to a criminal charges to be brought against Lois Lerner, and the Democrats yesterday, they were desperate to have this letter to Holder be a secret letter. They didn't want the letter to be made public, and we basically, under the leadership of Dave Camp, chairman of the committee, and I'm paraphrasing, but that's ridiculous. We need the public to know, here's the information that we found. It's not confidential information, and let's make sure that that the public has it. So this whole notion that Barack Obama was arguing in an interview a couple of months ago that there's not a smidgen of criminal wrongdoing is just ridiculous, and that very quickly needs to be dismissed and discredited as absurd.
Well, Congressman, yesterday on the show we had strategist Ford O'Connell telling us that maybe the party might be taking this issue a little too far. Perhaps they might give Lois Lerner immunity here and maybe see how far this thing actually goes. You mentioned Dick Durbin. You mentioned some other names as well. Do you think this stops at Lois Lerner, or do you think maybe she should be given immunity to see how far this issue really goes?
So, yeah, great question. The immunity question is really a legal question, and you've got to be very strategic about that. So right now, Lois Lerner has not communicated to anybody or any forthright way what she's willing to testify about, so, and what she actually did or has knowledge of. So this is not a situation where somebody gets immunity and then they tell their story. No, they tell their story in the form of what's known as a proffer. What is it that she's willing to say? And if she's willing to say things that are helpful and interesting, then you have an immunity discussion. But the immunity discussion is not a prelude to her disclosure.
Peter, of course, there's constitutional oversight, and part of that is what the Ways and Means Committee and what you've been involved in now. The political aspect, however, there's concern that if it appears that the GOP is too strident, again, paraphrasing Ford O'Connell's evaluation yesterday, that again, this needs to return to an argument of transparency and process rather than personalities. Taking the broad view politically, is that something you would agree with?
I would agree with that. And if you look at how, so the Ways and Means Committee, Dave Camp is the chairman of the committee. JD, you served with him. You know his demeanor and his disposition. This is a very measured guy who is very careful about what he does and is incredibly thoughtful. So when Dave Camp comes out and months after these things have been made known to us, then makes this referral, it is a very serious thing. So
it is a serious and sober step that's being taken, and obviously one fraught with not so much political risk, but has to be handled with care. Peter Roskam, we are very grateful for your time. We'll have to leave it there. We look forward to our next visit with you.
It's good to get the Congressman's perspective on that. We'll be back with more here on America's Forum after this.